So for the last few months we've been resurrecting this Bhagavad-gita class. At this stage we have it on Tuesday and Thursday nights. And just like when Srila Prabhupada, he established the Hare Krishna ISKCON movement, he established a daily program, and he called it the sandwich program. So we start the day here in the temple in the morning for the morning program, which is very empowering. And when we come to this morning program, we hear from a devotee about the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so the Srimad Bhagavatam is a book about pure devotional service, where we learn about how to perform devotional service. Basically a book that is to do with the three B's, Bhakta, Bhakti and Bhagavan. So the devotees, they inspire us on how to perform devotional service. Generally there's so many problems and issues in life, but it all can be resurrected by devotional service. So we hear the Bhagavatam early in the morning, and that is what inspires us to go out and serve Krishna as a devotee. And so throughout so the morning program is like the base of the sandwich, and then the filling of the sandwich is our service throughout the day, our duties, our daily duties. And then to top off the sandwich, we come back to the temple and we discuss the Srimad Bhagavad-gita. So here we are on Tuesday night, and we're doing what pleases Srila Prabhupada. We're following his program, and it gives Srila Prabhupada a great pleasure that we're reciting and discussing this Bhagavad-gita. So it's great to see you all here. Okay, so we'll start again. Please repeat after me. Kabhyama smagama pata na tattva upapadyate pustram hridaya dobalyam tiyakotista param tapa Kabhyama smagama pata na tattva upapadyate sudram hridaya dobalyam tiyakotista param tapa. Someone else? Abhyam asma pata adatva upapadyate sudram hridaya dobalyam tiyakotista param tapa. Ayam asmagama pata ayatat upapadyate sudram hridaya dobalyam tiyakotista param tapa. Word for word, please repeat. Kabhyam, impotence. Masma, do not. Gama, take to. Pata, O son of Pita. Na, never. Etat, this. Tvai, unto you. Upapadyate is befitting. Sudram, petty. Hridaya, of the heart. Dobalyam, weakness. Tyakva, giving up. Uttista, get up. Param tapa, O chastiser of the enemies. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Ki. Translation: O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Purport: Arjuna was addressed as the son of Pritha, who happened to be the sister of Krishna's father, Vasudeva. Therefore, Arjuna had a blood relationship with Krishna. If a Kshatriya declines to fight, he is a Kshatriya in name only. And if the son of a Brahmana acts impiously, he is a Brahmana in name only. Such Kshatriyas and Brahmanas are unworthy sons of their fathers. Therefore, Krishna did not want Arjuna to become an unworthy son of a Kshatriya. Arjuna was the most intimate friend of Krishna, and Krishna was directly guiding him on the chariot. But in spite of all these credits, if Arjuna abandoned the battle, he would be committing an infamous act. Therefore, Krishna said that such an attitude in Arjuna did not fit his personality. Arjuna might argue that he would give up the battle on the grounds of his magnanimous attitude to the most respectable Bhishma and his relatives. But Krishna considered that sort of magnanimity mere weakness of heart. Such false magnanimity was not approved by any authority. Therefore, such magnanimity, or so-called non-violence, should be given up by persons like Arjuna under the direct guidance of Krishna. Omegan Timarandasya Gyananjana Shadakaya Chaksuan Militam Yena Tasma Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Tarati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru and Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagritam Sahagana Raginafitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sautam Parigan Sayitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaganalita Shri Vishakam Satamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubhani Sate Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Vanchakalparupascha Kripa Sindhu Evicha Patina Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadha Shiva Sari Go Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare Hare Shubha Ki Jai. Just before I begin, I'd just like to ask for the blessings of all of you to enable me to speak something of value and something that's beneficial and ultimately something that best represents Srila Prabhupada's teachings. So it's written in the Gita Mahatmya, verse number 1. One who, with a regulated mind, recites with devotion this Gita Sastram, the bestower of all virtue, will attain the holy abode of Lord Vishnu, free from fear and lamentation. Free from fear and lamentation. How good life would be if we just had complete freedom from lamentation and fear. Arjuna's on a battlefield, and he's right in the middle of this battlefield, and the conches are blown, the horses and the elephants are roaring, and all the warriors are surrounding around him and just looking at him and waiting to see what he's going to do. And the warriors are firing each other up and speaking their tactics to one another. So the battlefield is becoming quite intense. And on this battlefield, Arjuna starts to have doubts. And he starts to be confused. And he becomes overwhelmed and basically has a complete meltdown. And he is feeling fear and he is feeling lamentation. The great philosopher Jiva Goswami, he says that the first and the final instruction of the Bhagavad-gita is very instructive because it tells us the basic human condition of every single person in this world. The first instruction comes in at 2:11, where Krishna says, Asoshan anva soshas tvam. He says, don't lament. And the last and final instruction he gives is in 1866, the final verse, the final instruction, the very famous verse that we all know, 1866, where he says, Moksha ishami ma susha. Do not fear. So this word, soshar, comes up in the very first instruction and the very final instruction. Do not lament, do not fear. Soshar means worries, fear, anxiety, and lamentation. So Krishna says basically the human condition is that from morning to evening, the underlying emotions are anxiety, fear, and lamentation. So if in your life you have confusion, if you have doubts, anxiety, fear, lamentation, generally we think there's something wrong with that person. But this is not your life going wrong. This is actually your life going right. Because Arjuna is feeling this lamentation. And if we, like Arjuna, we feel this fear and lamentation going on in our life, and we can admit that, and we go on the path of the Bhagavad-gita, just like Arjuna, and it is an extremely powerful path to go on. So recently the World Health Organization, they came out and said that the growing health crisis is mental health, anxiety, depression. The amazing thing is, Krishna said this 5,000 years ago. So the Bhagavad-gita is so relevant to our lives. It was spoken 5,000 years ago, but today it's even more relevant than ever before. So Arjuna is feeling this pressure. Everybody's eyes are on Arjuna. He's in the middle of the battlefield, and he becomes overwhelmed with grief, and he puts down his bow and arrow and says, I don't think I can do this. He's so overwhelmed with grief and fear and lamentation. So why is Arjuna feeling like this, and why are these emotions so prevalent? Why is everyone in the world feeling these emotions of overwhelmed grief, fear, lamentation? Basically, a lack of spiritual or no spiritual knowledge, which means no spiritual intelligence, no spiritual realization, no spiritual vision. So Arjuna's in the middle of the battlefield and he has no spiritual vision. So Arjuna, just like all of us, we're looking for happiness. We all want to be happiness in this world, yeah? We're all looking to be happy. So just like Arjuna, he's on the battlefield, he's in the material world, he's looking to be happy. But he's not seeing happiness. He's looking around him, and what he sees is a battlefield, and he sees bodies. And he thinks he's the body, and he thinks all around him are bodies. and he begins to identify with these bodies. And he says, he recognizes them, he looks around, and he says, that's my father, that's my grandfather, there's my teachers, my brothers over there, my sons, my grandsons, my friends, my father-in-law, and my well-wishers. So this is material vision. So if we just have material vision like this and we fully invest ourselves just in temporary bodily relationships with one another and go about in this world thinking that this world is meant for our enjoyment, our happiness alone, which is very temporary, we like Arjuna will feel let down, will be frustrated, will be anxious and lament. So Krishna says, Mam avamamso jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana, mana sasti anrinya, prakriti stani kasati. Krishna says the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So if we are just on the bodily platform and we're just seeing the world through our senses and our mind, which is just like our senses and sentiments, we're not actually seeing. Because Krishna says that we're spiritual living entities and we're part of we're his eternal fragmental parts. We are all belonging to him. So to think that they're my parents or my grandparents, my sons, my mother, my wife, my children, no, they're actually belonging to Krishna. And therefore, a real relationship is a relationship of service, selfless service, spiritual relationship. Knowing full well that everyone and everything in this world belongs to Krishna, and my responsibility, if I have a wife, if I have children, if I have friends or anyone who comes into my world, my responsibility is to connect with them on the spiritual platform of service and help them and guide them and encourage them and support them and return them back to where they actually belong, which is with Krishna. So in this situation, Arjuna's on the battlefield and his service is actually to destroy the bodies of all those on the battlefield. And that's his service to Krishna, but that's also his service to all those on the battlefield. Because by doing that service and destroying their bodies, he's actually giving opportunity to these living entities to take a better birth, or get liberation, get a birth and get a better body, better opportunity on their path back to Krishna. So in the Bhagavad-gita, there are two very significant verses, and they're significant, very important, because Krishna repeats them. There's only two verses in the Bhagavad-gita where he says twice. The first one is 3:35, where he says, Shrayan swa damo viguna, para damat swa anustitat, swa dame nid anam shraya, para damo by av an a. Krishna says, perform your swadharma. So your swadharma is your worldly duty in this world, your worldly duty. And we all have a swadharma. We all have a worldly duty according to our nature. We all have our own nature that we've acquired through the qualities that we've come in contact with and from our previous karma. We all have a specific nature, specific dharma, and he says to do that. That is your duty in this world, is your dharma. So if you do your dharma following religious principles of righteousness, earning honestly with integrity, with a service mood, service to the Lord, and you share the results of your labor generously, then you will actually be successful, and then you will actually be happy. And that is what we're all seeking. We're seeking to be happy. But in this situation, and sometimes in the situation of our lives, we neglect our Dharma just like Arjuna, and we become frustrated, confused in life, and therefore we can sometimes lament. William Shakespeare once said, or famously said, in fact, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. They have their exits and entrances, and one man his time plays many parts." So this helps us to understand what this world actually is. It's not our true home. It's just a stage. And we've come into this world in this one lifetime, in this chapter of life, and we have a role to play. All of us have a Dharma, we have our own role to play. So someone might be a gardener, someone might be a cook, someone might be a teacher, doctor, whatever it may be, we play that role. That is our role in this lifetime, and we do it to the best of our ability, and we do it to serve Krishna, and we do it to benefit others around us. So the stage where Arjuna is, that is his stage. So he's on the battlefield. He's a warrior, kshatriya. He's a fighter. That is his nature. He is meant to fight. So he is on the stage, and he's neglecting his fight. He's neglecting his dharma. So the other significant verse in the Bhagavad-gita, which Krishna repeats, is 9:34, where he says, "Man mana bhava mad bhakto mad yagi mam namaskuru mam evasi yuktavam atmanam mat prayana." He says, "Engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me." So this is a very confidential instruction that's given to Arjuna. And it's very important instruction because in our lives we should be trying to always think of Krishna. We should try and mold our lives in such a way that we can always be thinking of Krishna. So Arjuna was struggling to do this due to his conditioning. He was not thinking of Krishna. He had become somewhat unconscious of Krishna. So Krishna says, "Mang chitta sava dukkani mat prasadat tarisyati atta chet tvam ahankaran na srayasi vinakyasi." Krishna says, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. So, in our conditioned life, if we're not conscious, if we're not able to become free from this conditioning and be conscious of Krishna, we'll become very lost in our lives. And that is how Arjuna is feeling right now. So the root cause of all our sufferings and all our problems that Arjuna is feeling, and sometimes we might be feeling in our lives, is basically our own mind. Our own mind is causing us the suffering. Because somehow or other, we've become unconscious of Krishna. Somehow or other, somewhere along the way, we have forgotten Krishna. One time, one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, he said to Srila Prabhupada, "Prabhupada, sometimes I forget Krishna." Prabhupada said, "You always forget Krishna. Sometimes you remember him." So this is kind of the story of our lives. We become forgetful of Krishna due to our conditioning. So Arjuna is a conditioned soul. That's what we must try and understand. He's playing a role of a conditioned soul, just like us. So what is a conditioned soul? We hear it so often, conditioned soul. Srila Prabhupada explains in the introduction of the Sri-Upanishad what a conditioned soul is. And he says every conditioned soul, every person in this world suffer from 4 defects. 1, they have imperfect senses. So Prabhupada says at night time in the dark, if we turn out the lights, we cannot even see. So how much trust and faith can we actually have in these senses? Number 2, we are in illusion, meaning we accept something which is not. And what we commonly accept is that we are the body, which is actually not. We are spirit souls. And number 3, we commit mistakes. Prabhupada says to err is human. So we all commit mistakes. Number 4, we have the propensity to cheat. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, what he says is that we have imperfect senses and we are in illusion, therefore we commit mistakes. And then what do? We lie, we cheat to try and cover them all up. So this is what we're doing in our lives. Because our senses are imperfect, we can't actually acquire real knowledge. We have imperfect knowledge. And we're in illusion, and we're thinking there's something which is not. And we're coming up with all these assumptions and all these ideas. And in this conditioned state, we can't actually come up with any good ideas about what we should be doing in our lives. And so this is the position of Arjuna. He's completely bewildered in this conditioned state, and he doesn't have the consciousness to be able to figure out what he should be doing. So this is where the Bhagavad-gita comes in handy. Because when we're just on the material platform and we're just seeing the world through our senses and our sentiments, it can only take us so far. But the Bhagavad-gita is that one book which can clear us from this material conditioning by giving us knowledge. And that knowledge can shift our vision from the way in which we're accustomed to seeing the world and seeing life. So there is a world that we see, but there are so many invisible worlds that we don't see. Sometimes there is an invisible world that people are hallucinating that doesn't actually exist. One time in the very early times of the movement, one of Srila Prabhupada's very early disciples, he said to Prabhupada, "Swamiji, when I offer the food, I can see this glowing light around it." Prabhupada looked back at him and said, "Just keep on chanting, it'll go away." So there's an invisible world that is not there, but there is an invisible world that is there. But we don't currently have access to it because it's in the spiritual dimension. It's in the 4th dimension. In Sanskrit, this is known as Turiya, the 4th dimension. But right now, we're stuck in the 3rd dimension. We're stuck in this material world, and we're not actually accessing this spiritual dimension, the 4th dimension. So this is in the 3rd dimension here in this material world, and in the material world, there's so many threes. But the Bhagavad-gita helps us to go beyond the 3 dimension and access this 4th dimension of the spiritual world. So there's so many threes, isn't there? There's the 3 modes of material nature: ignorance, passion, goodness. But through the knowledge of the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna favors goodness. So he says, live in the mode of goodness, which is the mode of illumination, and practice devotional service and come to pure goodness, Suddha Sattva, the transcendental platform, the 4th dimension. There's so many other threes, like the threefold miseries. There's miseries coming at us from all angles every day. There's miseries coming at us from other living entities. There's miseries coming at us from nature, and there's miseries coming from our own body and our own mind. So the knowledge of the Gita can help us, bring us to an existence that transcends all of these, brings us into the 4th dimension. And also there are 3 states of consciousness. There's deep sleep, dreaming state, wakeful state. But the Bhagavad-gita brings us out of this. The Bhagavad-gita, the knowledge of the Bhagavad-gita brings us to Krishna consciousness, which takes us from existing in this life to actually living in the 4th dimension. So there are also 3 platforms of acquiring knowledge. There's the physical, there's the mental, and there's the intellectual. But the Bhagavad-gita gives us spiritual knowledge, gives us spiritual intelligence that transcends all of this, transcends the knowledge that we get from the senses, from the sentiments, from material intelligence. Spiritual intelligence can transcend all of this thanks to the Bhagavad-gita. And there's also the 3 planetary systems. There's the lower, which is how there's a middle where we are situated, this earthly planet, and then there's the upper planetary system, heaven. But the Bhagavad-gita tells us there's a spiritual world, there's a 4th dimension. So Arjuna, like us, we're in this material world and we're feeling the sufferings, we're feeling some pain, we're feeling some distress in this conditioned state. And Arjuna comes up with so many excuses, so many arguments as to why he cannot fight. And the main argument overall is compassion. And generally compassion is considered to be good, but this, in his case, compassion as a fighter, as a warrior in the battlefield is not so good. And he's also thinking of material compassion and not so much the spiritual form of spiritual compassion. So this is in the material world, the 3 dimensions. So in this material world, just like Arjuna, we try to come up with so many solutions to the troubles of life, of all our battles that we have to contend with. But it's basically impossible to come up with solutions within these 3 dimensions of this material world. But so many people try by taking intoxication, they take to gambling, they watch movies, play video games, go on holidays. But these are basically just temporary escapes. Recently I've been doing a little bit of traveling myself just in the past few years. I've visited airports and it just amazes me the development of the airports in these cities that I've gone to. The airports these days are like a city within the city. They're enormous. It's like incredible. And there's so many people there, and there's so many people moving around trying to catch their flight to go to somewhere. And it just amazes me. In this airport, they even have like cafes and restaurants, supermarkets. Everything's there. Like, it's incredible. And I remember just being in the airport and just observing, looking around and thinking, what are these people doing here? Where are they going? What are their plans? What are they doing with their life? And it helped me just to realize that actually people are looking for something greater. They're looking to fulfill their dreams and desires somewhere. They want to go somewhere to find that place. And it's so like innate in all of us that we're actually looking for this. We're looking for this greater freedom of life that can fulfill these desires. But they're going to the airport and flying around from place to place. We're looking for it in the wrong place. But it just helped me to realize that desire is within all of us. And then there's the health and the physical issues that we have in our life. So many people have a huge big medicine cabinet in their house, full of medicine. I know this because I used to do house sits. I used to stay in people's houses and look after their house and look after their pets. And what I would find is that they would have so many medicines, all kinds of medicine, pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, like herbs and vitamins and supplements for this, that, and the other. And yeah, we have to look after our health, of course. But it helped me to realize that so many people are suffering from so many ailments, so many conditions, so many diseases. And they're sort of not only trying to cure their diseases, but I think that even people are trying to find that magic pill, that magic medicine that will give them that vitality, that energy to make them feel invincible in some way. So when I was on these house sits, I was just thinking to myself, like, if only I could just give them the real medicine, give them the medicine of the holy name, which will actually cure all their problems and cure that heart, purify their heart and make them feel so much better. But anyway, there's also people who try to make solutions by prolonging their life, people who are just so much absorbed in their body and their bodily looks, like going to the gym, which is not so bad, but going to the gym is a starter. The people not only go to the gym, but these days they do have facelifts, Botox, tummy tucks, breast implants, lip filling, eyelash extending. I mean, this is... the world's gone mad, isn't it? But this is what's going on in the world. So everyone's going to the gym. Everyone's so focused on the body, but who's coming to the mind gym? Who's coming to the mind gym 4:30 a.m. every single morning? Right here. Who's working on the mind? Who's trying to uplift their consciousness? Who's trying to connect themselves to themselves? Who's trying to connect themselves to the powerhouse of Krishna? If you connect with Krishna, who is the powerhouse, you'll get his energy, and therefore you will become powerful and your life will become beautiful. So there's so many problems in this world, and there's so many temporary solutions. Einstein once said, you can't solve the problems of this world with the same type of thinking that started them in the first place. We have to go beyond. One time, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, can you please read my palm? Prabhupada said, yeah, I can read your palm. So this disciple, he stuck out his hand, and all the devotees were gathered around, and I'm thinking, wow, Srila Prabhupada's going to read this guy's palm, what's he going to say? So Prabhupada's looking deeply into his palm, and he's saying, yes, I see what's going on here. I can see your future. I know what's going to happen. Everyone's thinking, wow, what's Prabhupada? What's he seeing? What's he going to say? And Prabhupada, he said, I know for certain your future. Birth, death, and in between, old age and disease. It's going to happen to every single one of us. Time and tide waits for no man. So if you are suffering from doubts, confusion, fears, lamentation, if you want relief, you have to take to the Bhagavad-gita. And you have to allow the Bhagavad-gita to enter into the deepest space of your heart. And therefore, you can connect with Turiya, you can connect with the fourth dimension. So Arjuna's on the path, he's looking to do that, but he's still confused and he has tears in his eyes and he's looking at Krishna. And so what's Krishna's response? Slap, verbal slap. He says, how have these impurities become before you? They are not befitting a man who knows the value of life. Slaps him again. They will lead to infamy. So it must be understood, Arjuna is a warrior, which means he's a Kshatriya, warrior. And the qualities of a warrior, Kshatriya, is heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership. So Arjuna has tears in his eyes. He's not living up to his nature. And so Krishna is trying to remind him of that. Krishna is saying, you are a warrior. Do your duty. You come from a great family lineage. You were trained to be a warrior. All your life you've been a warrior. You know the art. You're an expert warrior, an expert archer. You are the greatest. You are big, you are strong, you're in the peak of your prime. Stand up and fight. So then he slaps him again. He says, do not yield to this degrading impotence. Again, give up such petty weakness of heart. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna, don't act like a coward. Get up and show some courage and fight. So to hear this, for a Kshatriya to hear this is actually a great insult. Because a Kshatriya, when they're challenged to a fight, they must fight. They can't stand down from a fight. If they don't fight, they're called a coward. So this kind of response from Krishna seems somewhat heavy, but actually Krishna is concerned about Arjuna. is concerned because they're great friends and he has so much care and love for Arjuna. And he doesn't want to see Arjuna make the wrong decision. And he wants to make sure Arjuna understands the situation and tries to encourage and inspire him to fight in this battle. So in our lives also, if we have people like that actually, we have people in our lives that will just tell us how it is, be honest and truthful to us, and people who care for us, people who want the best for us, people who can actually see more potential in us than we can see in ourselves. That is great wealth. Srila Prabhupada was just like that. Srila Prabhupada, when he spoke, he could be heavy, he could be strong, he could also be very bold, but it's coming from a kind, soft heart. He was a representative of Krishna, and his service was to bring every spirit soul back to the lotus feet of Krishna. So in my life, at the beginning stages of devotional service, I was probably not taking it so seriously. And although I enjoyed so much about spiritual life, I enjoyed the kirtan and the prasadam and the devotee association and the beautiful nature that we live here at New Govardhana. But I was probably, due to a lack of knowledge, wasn't taking it as seriously as what I should have. But then I started listening to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada would, he would say things that just completely transformed my consciousness. He would say things like, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. This is the life of the animals. Don't spoil life like the cats and dogs. Make a solution to the problems of life, of birth, death, old age, and disease. Take to this Krishna consciousness seriously, make your life a success, and go back home, back to Godhead. And when he said things like that, I was like, wow. So Prabhupada completely, such an influence on my life, it's the potency of a pure devotee. Because from that moment on, I looked at my life, I looked at the life around me, and I started to realize it's true. Every single thing Srila Prabhupada is saying is true. Everything that when I looked at my life and I looked at the life around me, it's true. And that gave me so much faith and confidence in Srila Prabhupada, knowing that I don't have to do anything but follow his instructions. It's simple as that. So Srila Prabhupada gave a class on this verse, which I listened to, and his main point was that he was making that was the common man was actually would accuse Krishna as being immoral. Saying, why is Krishna forcing Arjuna to fight? Why is he inducing this violence, creating this war, And it's amazing because I actually thought that as well. And Prabhupada says this is jada darshan, meaning material vision. So when I first met the devotees, I was just blown away with their kindness and compassion and their care. I was like, these people are just wonderful, beautiful people. Why are they following a philosophy that's based on a war? That confused me at the beginning. Anyway, after that, someone advised me to read the Krishna book. And they said, read the Krishna book and, you read it before you go to bed with a cup of milk, and you sit there and just read the Krishna book, and that'll help you to understand Krishna and your relationship with him. So I tried doing that, but in the Krishna book, Krishna is killing himself. There's even more violence going on. And I was thinking, my God, what's going on here? What kind of God is this? But anyway, I carried on in my spiritual life somehow. I think it was that faith I had in Prabhupada that's kept me going. So Prabhupada says we have to develop special senses. We can't have material senses or we see it in the wrong way. We have to have special senses. He says, does that mean we have to pluck out our eyes and get new eyes? He said, no, we need purification. So the purification, he says, starts with the tongue. So what does the tongue do? It chants Hare Krishna, it speaks about Krishna, and it tastes Krishna prasadam, spiritual food offered to Krishna. Like we always sing, Tarmadya jivati lobamai sudamati takajatakatina samsare. So it says in the prayer before we take prasadam, the tongue is the most ferocious and uncontrollable. It is very difficult to control the tongue in this world. Anyone can relate? Yeah. So Prabhupada said we have to control this tongue, and the tongue is in a straight line, starting from the tongue. If we can start by controlling the tongue, then we can control the belly, control the genitals. And that is what we're trying to do in this purification process, is try to purify our senses. But he said not only that, we must avoid the 10 offenses. So I used the analogy of we're trying to light the fire of devotional service in our life. We're all trying to ignite that fire of devotional service, aren't we? But he said if we just focus on the tongue and all we're doing is chanting Hare Krishna, that's good, but it's like trying to light fire to wet wood. So what he explained is that we have to dry the wood. And by drying the wood means we have to avoid the 10 offenses. Bahu jamikari yari shavana kirtana tabatana paya Krishna pera premadana. If one is infested with any of the 10 offenses in chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name over many births, he will not get the love of Godhead, which is the ultimate goal of this chanting. So we must avoid the 10 offenses. And therefore we can be purified, and as a result we can start to realize and understand who Krishna is. Not that we'll be able to understand Krishna, because Krishna is inconceivable. We can never fully understand Krishna. But at least we can know and understand that Krishna is still Bhagavan Swayam, meaning that Krishna is the original, he is the supreme, and he is Bhagavan, full of all opulences. So Prabhupada said in this lecture, he said, whatever Krishna is doing, that is all good. Whatever I am doing without authority's order is all bad. So Krishna is Om Paramam, he is perfect and complete. Everything he does is all good. One time, Srila Prabhupada, when he was surrounded with all his disciples, he once said to them, how do you know what I am telling you is true? How do you know that Krishna is supreme? And there could be many answers, but all the devotees, they were a bit confused. One devotee said one thing, another devotee said another thing. There was a few answers going on. And then one devotee said, because when I chant Hare Krishna, I can feel the presence of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said, exactly, that's it. So when we chant Hare Krishna, we must be able to somehow or other feel the presence of Krishna. Krishna is present in his name. So in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna, there's the chapter Slokis, and Krishna talks about his loving relationship with his devotees. And when he does this, Arjuna starts to be cleared from his illusion. And he says, you are the ultimate abode. You are the purest. You are the absolute truth. You are eternal, transcendental, the original person, unborn, the greatest. So that is Krishna. But more than that, Krishna is a God that likes to serve his devotees. Krishna has taken a subordinate position to drive the chariot for Arjuna in this battle, because he loves to serve his devotees. So Krishna is a God that serves his devotees, and he also loves to have a relationship, a relationship with his devotees, a loving relationship with each and every single one of us. Therefore he says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yomi bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktya paritam asnami prayatapmanaha. Krishna says, I don't need anything, nothing. One fruit, a leaf, a flower, a little water. Just give me your love. Just give me your love. That's all Krishna wants. So we must try to understand that Krishna is someone we can give our love to. And if we give our love to Krishna, Krishna will reciprocate unlimitedly. So what's stopping us? It's an easy process. Prabhupada would say it's simple for the simple, but complicated for the complicated. This devotional service, bhakti yoga, is very simple. Chant, dance, feast. So, in Arjuna's situation, and when I first got this verse, I read this verse a few weeks ago, and I started contemplating on what I needed to say. The thing that stood out to me is weakness of heart. In Arjuna's position, he is suffering from weakness of heart. So is Krishna saying that, Arjuna, you need a pacemaker? Arjuna is a warrior. He is a fighter. And there's two words, there's two qualities that he's displaying that he shouldn't be displaying in this situation. Srila Prabhupada points out in the purport, one word is magnanimity. And this word means a formal behavior that is kind, generous, and forgiving, especially towards an enemy or competitor. So this is not befitting Arjuna. You cannot win a war. You can't serve Krishna. You can't serve the devotees as a warrior with this kind of consciousness of these qualities. The other one is compassion. So the meaning of compassion is a strong feeling of sympathy and sadness of the suffering of bad luck of others and wish to help them. So this is not befitting Arjuna. He should not be displaying compassion and magnanimity. This is his weakness of heart. And like Arjuna, we might also have a weakness of heart in our lives that's blocking us or stopping us in our loving relationship, in our connection with Krishna, stopping us from advancing in our spiritual devotional life. So there's this one book, it's called Bhajana Rahasya. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that book, but this book was written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and it's based on the 8 prayers of the HG and which was given to us by Mahaprabhu. So in the second chapter, it's called Removal of Anarthas in Association of Devotees. So anarthas are those unwanted things that are blocking or stopping us from actually having a relationship with Krishna. So he says there's 4 types of anarthas. There's aparad, which are offences. So he says there's atrista, material desires. There's tattva vibrama, illusion about spiritual knowledge. And number 4, he says hridaya dob alya, weakness of heart is one of our anarthas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that these anarthas lead to material bondage and miseries. So there are also 4 weaknesses of heart. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that the first weakness of heart is called tucha sakti, attachment to insignificant things. So we may be attached to our material comforts, our worldly relationships, some sense gratification. And these are actually blocking us from our connecting with Krishna, because in our heart, it's holding Krishna out. The biggest lie in the world, there's the biggest lie in the world, right? The biggest lie in the world is that material comforts, worldly pursuits, worldly relationships, sense gratification, material happiness will make us happy. That is the biggest lie in the world. Therefore, Krishna says, Yehi samspasa boga dukkha yunaya evate adi anta vanta kuntaya nata suramate buddha. Krishna says you have to have Buddha, you have to have intelligence, because material enjoyments are a source of misery. The wise man, they know. A wise man doesn't get diverted by these. They don't get distracted by these sorts of things anymore, because they know that material enjoyments, they don't delight in them because they know that they have a beginning and then they have an end. And therefore, you feel let down. Second weakness of heart, Bhaktivinoda says, is kuti nati, deceitfulness, being cunning, hypocritical, dishonest in dealings with others, manipulating situations for personal gain. So in the world we live in, there's so much cheating, there's not much integrity or honesty anymore. Prabhupada said, this world is full of cheaters and the cheated. Once there was a man and he's walking past a supermarket, and there's a sign on the supermarket, it said, you can have absolutely anything and everything you want, and your grandson will pay the bill. So this man thought, wow, this is amazing. So what he did is he went into the supermarket, he filled up his trolley, and he went out to check out. And then on his way out, the store manager called out to him, and he said, hey, what about the bill? The man looked back and said, but the sign says that my grandson will pay. The store manager said, yeah, this is the bill from your grandfather. So this is what people do. They're lying and cheating, but you cannot lie and cheat in this world. There's the law of nature, there's karma. You'll get what you deserve. So the third weakness of heart is known as matsaryam, enviousness. This is a very fatal weakness of heart. In the world, people find it so difficult to be happy for other people, to see other people doing well, isn't it? So difficult. Actually, if someone is envious to see others doing well, seeing people successful and happy, then it actually means they're envious of Krishna. Because Krishna is giving them this. Therefore, we're becoming envious of Krishna, and that's very fatal weakness of heart. Prabhupada says material life means to be unhappy to see others happy, but in spiritual life means to be happy to see others happy. And living here at New Govardhana, that was like the most refreshing thing, that everyone here is just happy to see others happy. Everybody's supporting, encouraging one another. We're all in it together. And that's the beauty of spiritual life and the beauty of being in a spiritual community like New Govardhana. Number 4, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, is swapratistha, which means desire for prestige. Everyone's trying to be the top dog in this world, isn't it? Everyone's trying to seek honor, respect. Everyone wants followers. Seeking glorification in spiritual life is very dangerous and intoxicating. because therefore it can inflate the ego and pride. Especially if you don't know how to handle it. Once there was an army general. You know, an army general demands respect. So in the presence of an army general, all the cadets are like this, you know? Respect. So in the headquarters of the army building, a fire broke out, a blazing fire. Unfortunately, there was a few soldiers, a few cadets that were on the ground floor. And what they did is they got a net, and there's a 2-story building. They got a net and they called out to the soldiers, jump, jump. So they started jumping and they were catching him in the net. And then it was time for the general, the army general, to jump. So they called out, jump. So he jumped, and as he was coming down, respect will kill you. Respect will kill you if you don't know how to handle it. So in spiritual life, we're always trying to go low. You know the saying, humbler than a blade of grass and lower than a straw in the street. Trying to become humble. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, these weaknesses of heart, they give rise to the 6 enemies. What are those 6 enemies? Lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, envy. And with these enemies, makes it very difficult for that creeper of devotion to grow and develop. So what's the remedy? The remedy of this weakness of heart starts by taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. And we'll see Arjuna is only 4 verses away from doing this. So he's on the path. It's not far away. So Krishna Balaram is actually the representative of the Guru. Bala means strength. That strength will help us overcome this weakness of heart. So he's the original Guru, and all other Gurus, they get their strength from Balaram. So what will happen, a Guru will come into your life, and he'll come into your life with a plough. Just like Balaram, Krishna Balaram, not today, but usually, most days, he carries a plough. And so a Guru, he'll come into your life with a plough, and they're expert gardeners. So what the Guru will do is he'll start cultivating, working away on your heart. And what the Guru does is that he gives us the strength to let go of material desires. He gives us the strength to be honest. He gives us the strength to be genuinely happy for others. And he gives us the strength to give up on being the top dog, and helps us to realize that real happiness lies in being a servant. So this process of Krishna consciousness under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master will destroy this weakness of heart that we may be suffering from. And it'll help us to cultivate a clean heart, a heart which is pure, a beautiful heart, and a heart that's free from all these anarthas. A heart that's full of love, and a heart that's full of devotion. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for your kind attention. I'll stop there and see if there's any comments or questions. We don't have much time, actually. So if there's any very nagging question, please come forward. But we don't have much time, so... is there another... Yeah. No questions? Okay, maybe we'll stop there. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Pramanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Thank you so much.